the hardest muscle to activate appropriately seems to be the right glute. That's what people struggle with the most, is activating that right glute max. And I'm going to go over a couple reasons for that, and I'm going to show why it's so important. Now, if you've been following any of these videos or you're familiar with postural restoration, a lot of it focuses on getting to the left because you're stuck to the right, getting to the left and then strengthening the left side of the body. Underappreciated is the role of the right glute, and it's really the only right glute, the right side muscle that we try to strengthen directly, because most of our weaker muscles are on the left side. The right glute is necessary to push us to the left. When you put your weight on your right leg and you use the ground to push to the left, to push your weight to the left, that is abduction, abduction. The right glute and the right glute medius and minimus are responsible for abducting and pushing us to the left. This is a frontal plane issue. We get really weak in abduction of the right glute because, or we get really weak in right abduction because the glute gets kind of dormant. The reason? Because we never actually go to the left. Once you've been stuck on the right side for so long, left AIC pattern, pelvis comes forward on the left, back on the right, orients the entire pelvis to the right most often. That's the most often position. It's the most often. That's the position you'll find yourself in most often. When you're in that position for too long, that right glute, because it's never actually getting the chance to push us to the left, it just gets weak. It also gets weak in holding us from falling over to the right. That right glute, because it becomes dormant, it needs to do two things. It needs to stop us from going to the right, and it needs to push us left. I just talked about pushing us left, it's not doing it, but it also weakens in holding us upright in right stance to prevent us from falling to the right even further. And when that occurs, you start to use a lot of hip flexor and inner thigh. So the TFL on the right side, the right adductor. The right psoas is probably going to try to externally rotate, but it will probably be playing ping pong with the TFL, kind of just keeping you overly stable on the right side with the right hip flexor, because that right glute has weakened so much that it can't hold you up and prevent you from falling to the side. So in order to get our body to go to the left, we need to obviously strengthen the ability of the right glute max to do that. That will also take away tension from the right psoas and the right TFL and the right adductor, which are all, and the right QL, which are all active in right stance. But when you lose the right glute, those muscles get more active. Now, you can't really do much with those muscles directly because they don't really control too much. They're not prime movers. Obviously, they're important, they work, but they're not the prime movers like the right glute is. That's why the right glute is so important. Some muscles exist, they all play a role, but you can't do much with them to resolve an issue of lack of alternation between right side and left side. By getting the right glute back into play, we can shift over to the left. And that is what you need. But you need sufficient abduction strength with that right glute. So that's why we use it. There is one exercise on my website that demonstrates it, the right glute max exercise, but I just wanted people to understand why actually we need that and why it's so important. It's not only about strengthening the left side, it's also about getting off the right side, and that right glute, that abduction ability, that abduction strength is so important to develop so that you can actually get to the left. Because you can work on the left side musculature all day long, but if you then get up and go about your day, upright walking activities, but your brain has never learned how to actually use abduction or doesn't have the strength to abduct the right leg and push you to the left, all that left-sided activity, all that left-side strengthening will not actually work. You don't have a chance to use it because you never actually get to the left again. So that right glute is unbelievably important. Not only that, you need to be able to feel the right glute at the same time that you're feeling the left inner thigh, the left glute medius, the left hamstring, the left abs. And that's, of course, more integrated activity. It's higher level activity than the couple exercises that I have on the site. But ideally, you will feel that right glute. You will sense that right glute, but you're going to also do it through sensing your right arch. So in the video that I have shown on my site, you'll notice two things. You have to set the frontal plane on the left. You have to push your bottom hip into the floor. Once you feel your weight on the left hip and you're sensing your right arch, those two reference centers that we call reference centers, the awareness of that left hip and the right arch will give you the right glute. Again, it's different than just trying to do a right glute exercise, because it's not really. It's a technique to experience your right glute in a different way, but you must do it in a way that the brain can make sense of it and understand it and incorporate it into walking. And that's by shifting the weight to the left with a right arch, because that's really what we're doing at the same time. It's not one leads to the other. All these things happen at the same time. A lot of people get caught up in what comes first, A lead to B. It's not like that. All these things are occurring. Movement is continuous. There's no beginning and no end. It's all the same thing. It's only your mind that splits these things up into different parts. Sometimes it has to be split up in different parts to teach it, but then if you keep it split up into different parts and you can't integrate it into the whole and just see it as it's one unified force, consistent, constant, never-ending, no beginning, no end, unless you see it like that, you just keep getting thrown off by, oh, what leads to what? It's not like that. It all has to happen at the same time. So that is the importance of the right glute max. It gets us off our right side and to the left side, and do not underestimate how difficult that can be for people, and do not think that that is just going to occur automatically, because it does not. And that is something that holds up a lot of people's programs, the inability to actually utilize that left side musculature that you've been working hard on, because you never taught your brain. Remember, this is a neurological issue. You never taught your brain, or you never relearned, because that's something you used to be able to do, but you've just stopped. You never relearned how to unload your right side and push to the left.